This is the Russian Dynamite, Masha Slamovich.
Becca here.
This is not America's Sweetheart, Davian.
It's Billy Starks. And
the super fly guy, Trayvon Jordan.
This is the fly side fly, Jalen Brandon.
Hardcore Princess, Jules Malone.
Hi there, this is the Bubblegum Princess, Alexia Nicole.
This is the Brazilian Wonder Woman, Christy Jane.
This is the baddest black belt, Chennai Kai.
This is Kid Bandit.
The smash hit Joel Bateman.
This is Robin Renegade.
Cody Hawk.
Brutal Bob Evans. And you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment, one of my favorite podcasts in the whole wide world.
This is Marek Brave, head coach at the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment.
Hello, and welcome to the show. It's Wrestling with Entertainment, the only audio experience on the web today, the trusted choice for interviewing all your favorite wrestlers every Tuesday and Wednesday on YouTube and Castbox, sponsored by Rogue Energy and Player One Coffee. I am, of course, your host, James J., and it's a great day for wrestling, because we are wrestling with Marek Brave.
That was a near perfect intro, except it's not Maverick Brave, it's Marek Brave. M-A-R-E-K, Marek. Like Eric with an M.
My apologies. Let me do it again.
Sure.
Marek Brave.
All right, now we've got it
there
right.
There we go. How are you today?
I'm doing well. We had our first snowfall of the year here in Iowa, so, I'm not a big fan of the snow, so maybe I was overselling it a little bit. But, trying to survive, getting some stuff around the house, and now I'm here chatting with you, so let's make it a good night.
Absolutely. And can you tell us what you have coming up, event-wise, training-wise? You are a very busy man.
You got that right. Very, very, very busy. On top of being a wrestling coach, I also put on local independent wrestling events. We have one of those this Saturday here in Iowa. By the time you listen to this, it will have already passed, our listeners out there. But, always putting on the wrestling shows, always doing the training, welcoming in new students, answering emails, running a merchandise line, in addition to being a father of 2 young kids. It's a busy life I lead, but a blessed life, that's for sure.
And, of course, all of the links to you, Black and Brave, and SCW will be in the description of the video below, both on YouTube and Castbox. Speaking of being busy, obviously, the news came out not too long ago, WWE ID. I feel like that relationship was always kind of there, but what does it kind of mean to you that it's now, official?
Yeah, that's actually a really great point. Unless you're living under a rock, you know that I run the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy with Seth Rollins, who's been a mainstay in WWE for over a decade now, multi-time WWE World Heavyweight Champion. So he's always had WWE's stamp of approval as an employee of theirs, but it's nice for myself, somebody whose in-ring career was cut short a little bit with a severe neck injury that I suffered many, many years ago, which caused me to get spinal fusion surgery. So I was never able to make it to WWE, although I've done work with WWE, being a part of WrestleMania 31 as one of the Russian soldiers for Rusev. That was a fun deal for me, and then various other appearances on Raw, SmackDown, and the like. But it was nice for myself to get WWE's stamp of approval, right? It's their way of saying that, hey, this guy's a good trainer. He teaches his students the right things the right way, and it's a program that kind of has not only been a long time in the making, but also just kind of sprung up out of nowhere. I had a conversation with Triple H about 8 years ago about his intentions to shine a light on the independent ranks. He's always been a big fan of the independents. He was an independent wrestler himself before he signed with WCW many, many years ago. So I had a conversation with him down when I was guest coaching at NXT about 8 years ago, and through the many twists and turns of WWE land, it took a while to come to fruition, but about 2 weeks before it was announced, they messaged us with the idea, with the proposal, and it all kind of came about quickly after that. So it's a very good thing for the independents. It's a good thing for the school. It's a good thing for myself and my students. So we're certainly happy about it.
And you mentioned WrestleMania 31. Ironically enough, that was the first WrestleMania that I ever attended live.
Oh, great.
So
Me too, actually. I got to be a part of the show, but it was also my first WrestleMania experience.
what was that experience like? I mean, obviously one of the bigger WrestleManias and one of a well-regarded WrestleMania as well.
Yeah, I mean, there are no words to say to explain how awesome that night was. I'll try for you, considering that's what we're doing here on this podcast. But to watch one of my best friends in life, in wrestling, in this world, win his first World Heavyweight Championship, that is a surreal experience. I still sometimes ask myself if that was a real thing that happened, and it all kind of came about serendipitously. Like I was asked to do extra work. I was asked to come and be a part of that, but it didn't really fit into my schedule. I had a young son at the time, and couldn't really see myself taking a week away, because you got to go there for rehearsals and all that stuff. You got to be out there for about a week. So I didn't really see myself being able to take a week away from home to be able to go do that on the West Coast, being an Iowa guy here. And so I initially told them no, that I was unavailable. And then they checked back in with me the week of WrestleMania, and they were like, "Are you sure? We'd really like you to be a part of this." Almost maybe foreshadowing things to come. So I checked in with my then wife, and she said, "Hey, you know what? You don't always get an opportunity to do something like this. Why don't you go take advantage of it?" So I said yes. I booked my ticket last minute, ended up spending a ridiculous amount of money to get a round trip ticket to San Francisco. Was able to get out there, do all the rehearsals, and got to be a part of the event. And I didn't know, Seth didn't even know that he was winning the world championship until that day. And I didn't know he was winning the world championship until he actually did it. So for that to happen, to be in attendance for that moment, to have my own WrestleMania moment on stage in front of 80,000 people, it's really one of the highlights of my life, one of the highlights of my professional wrestling career, and just there really are few words to explain and describe how I felt that night, and it really was such a special and magical moment.
All right. Now, getting back to, Black and Brave, you were trained, back in around 2004. I like to call those, the old West days of pro wrestling. So, how did you adjust the way that you were trained back then to fit the style of 2024?
Well, you're certainly dating me here. I do feel I do feel quite old with that statement there. But yeah, no, I actually started wrestling in August of 2003. I did day camps with certain people. I wouldn't say I was fully trained though until late 2004, like you just mentioned. And you're right, it really was a different time in the independent wrestling world. It was a different era. You're very, very astute to say that it was kind of like a Wild West type of mentality in independent wrestling. It was pretty loose. There was a lot of unwritten rules, and then also just not a lot of rules in general. So comparing wrestling 20 years ago on the independent level to wrestling now, it's a night and day comparison. So there were a lot of adjustments that needed to be made when starting my own journey as a professional wrestling coach, which was, and that was 10 years ago, right? We opened the school in 2014. So even just the changes from 2014 to 2024 have been numerous and nearly immeasurable. So, it's a different world nowadays. There are different people getting involved in wrestling. It's a new generation of individual, and they have to be taught in different ways than people were taught 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's more of it's really hard to put it into words, but back in the day we were told this is the way it is. You get no say in it. You're going to do what we say, or we're going to kick you out of here, right? And it's not really like that anymore. You can't treat this younger generation of human being the same way, that we were taught or we were treated 20 years ago. So it's a little bit. I hate to use the word, a little bit more of a gentler approach, but a little bit more of a cerebral approach, I would say. And figuring out how each individual ticks, and figuring out how each individual will get the most out of what you're trying to teach them, right? So you can come in guns a-blazing, screaming, yelling, and acting a fool, and maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that would have connected, that would have worked. But in 2024 and into 2025 and beyond, that's just not the way that these young people learn anymore. So you have to take a more measured approach. And so we've certainly adapted to this new world and this new style of learning and this new style of coaching. And I think it's been beneficial to our students.
What is something you know now that you wish you knew back then when it came to training?
I think kind of what I just said, right? Like that there is no one right way. There are many ways to skin a cat, for lack of a better term, but each individual is just that. They're an individual. They learn in different ways. They are receptive to different techniques, and I think that this newer generation of wrestler benefits from that mentality more so than maybe we would have 20 years ago.
And I'd like to maybe play a little word association with some of your students, if you're up for that.
Sure.
Niko Kline.
Now, do you need me to respond with just one word, or can I give you a few words?
You could give a few words if you'd like.
Sure. Niko Kline, that's my boy. We talk quite a bit, whether it's about wrestling or oftentimes sports. We're both big sports fans. And believe it or not, you're not going to find a lot of sports fans in wrestling. A lot of wrestling fans did not grow up being fans of sports, at least today's generation of wrestlers. So to have a graduate who likes sports nearly as much as I do, I won't say as much as I do, but it's nice to have conversations with Niko that don't involve wrestling.
Izzy B.
Izzy B, a sweetheart. She is a genuine human being. She's a kind soul. She's I don't have daughters. I have two sons, and so the female students that come through, I treat them like my daughters, and she's certainly one of them. And she's a shining light, a smiling face every time you get to interact with her.
Corn Boy.
Corn Boy is a wild man, but somebody who I've known for quite a while now. He's been with Black and Brave for a while, and he wrestles for my independent promotion, SCW Pro. He's the current Iowa wrestling champion. Corn Boy is a wild man, but a very loyal individual, a very hardworking individual, and he's somebody that if I needed anything, I know I can count on Corn Boy to have my back. He's a great human being, and I'm happy to have him in my life.
Zeke Andino.
Zeke Andino, that's my mate. He's one of our Australian grads. We actually have quite a few Australian grads. Zeke Andino, excuse me. He's a good person. He's a hard worker and somebody who's making waves for himself over on the other side of the world. And hopefully I'll get to see him again soon. When our paths cross once more.
Vincent Michaels.
Vincent Michaels. Now that is a success story, right? He'd be the first to tell you he wasn't the most athletic individual when he came to see us. But one thing that he had, which is needed to succeed in this business, is passion and heart. He tried very, very hard to take his shortcomings and turn them into strengths, and he's been able to do that. And I'm very happy to see that he's finding success and he's finding happiness here in independent wrestling, because there were definitely times during his training where he wasn't sure, maybe we weren't sure that he was going to make it through, but he persevered, he works hard, and I'm really happy to see that he's out there living a dream.
Nathan Frazier.
Nathan Frazier, what another success story in different ways, right? All the talent in the world, very, very entertaining individual. Very happy to see the success that he's achieved, and this is just the tip of the iceberg for him. He will continue to go on and do very great things in the professional wrestling industry, and I'm very happy to watch his journey.
Ziggy Dice.
Ziggy Dice. That's another wild guy. That's a crazy person. I've known for quite a while. He's a very genuine soul. He wears his heart on his sleeve. What you get from him is just an unabashed truth, you know. So Ziggy, I don't get to see him as often as I used to now that he's out there doing his thing, but he's definitely somebody that's brought a lot of laughter and humor into my life, and once again, very happy to know him and to be his coach and his friend as well.
If there's one word to describe Ziggy,
outlandish, baby. He's outlandish.
All right. Now, kind of going back to Niko Kline. You obviously you mentioned you low key retired around 2017. But then you had kind of a resurgence in 2023. Had a handful of matches. Your last match was against Niko Kline and MFG. Can you tell us about that run and working with Niko and MFG?
Oh, well, no wrestler ever truly retires, do they? They call it the itch. We get the itch. We want to get out there in front of the audience. We want to entertain. It's what we do. We're entertainers. So I was able to get myself into a position where I felt healthy for the first time in a long time. And I thought to myself, well, let's get back in the ring. Let's see what we can do. And there's a whole crop of young, hungry talent that I can have the opportunity to work with. And so when faced with the decision of who I wanted to work with, I had great respect for Niko Kline and MFG both. And I decided, hey, let's get this little tag team story going and let's get in the ring with these guys, because these are a couple of guys I really want to work with. And not only help them up their game, but I knew they would test me and get me into a position where I wasn't just going out there and playing the greatest hits. They forced me to make sure I was on top of my game. So it was an awesome opportunity to step into the ring with both of those guys, and if that's it, and I don't know if it's it might be it. I don't know. Maybe I'm soft retired once more. I'm certainly dealing with plenty of injuries, as a lot of wrestlers who've been doing it as long as I have, 21 years at this point, as a lot of old wrestlers are. We're dealing with a myriad of ailments, but if that's it and that's my last run, then I'm very thankful that I was able to have my last run with those guys, because they're a couple of really great dudes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the first time that your son actually got to see you can wrestle, right?
This last run started, I want to say, in 2022. I was able to hit it pretty heavy for about a year and a half before I got caught up with more injuries. And yeah, both my sons, actually. I have an 8-year-old son and a 13-year-old son. They were able to maybe not watch me for the first time. The youngest, for sure, yeah, for the first time. The oldest got to see me a bit when he was younger, but it was the first time they were old enough to have memories of watching me wrestle and fully understand what was going on. So that's certainly an invaluable experience, and something that I'll remember forever. They'll remember forever, and we'll cherish those moments as a family for the rest of our lives.
Now, running it back, you actually got injured in a tag team match, teaming with Seth, obviously, against them boys, the Briscoe Brothers.
Yeah, that's accurate. That was for FIP in May of 2007. That's how old I am.
I mean, even back in 2007, I mean, the Briscoes were low-key one of the best tag teams around. So what was your kind of mentality going into that match, obviously before, stuff happened?
I mean, certainly it was, like you mentioned, the Briscoe brothers, they were wrestlers that I had watched when I was just a fan of independent wrestling. They were wrestlers that I looked up to when I became an independent wrestler. And they were a tag team that myself and Seth Rollins strived to someday have an opportunity to perform with. And when the opportunity was presented to us to go down to Florida and wrestle them essentially in our tryout match for Ring of Honor, it was a great honor. It was something that we were very excited to do, but I'd be lying if I told you that I wasn't nervous as all hell for that one, because those guys are damn good, and I knew there was a lot of eyeballs on us that night, not just with the crowd in attendance, but people, the higher ups in the independent wrestling landscape. They wanted to know, hey, are the Black and the Brave, is Seth Rollins and Marek Brave, can they hang with these guys? And we put together a great match. We went out there, we were killing it. Unfortunately, the injury happened late, which kind of puts a dark cloud over the experience. But prior to the injury, it was certainly a great time being in the ring with those guys. And even after the injury happened, Jay Briscoe, Mark Briscoe, they checked in on me for the months following that injury, made sure I was doing all right and healing up okay. And we bonded over our love of the dog breed Rottweilers. We both had Rottweilers, and we would chat about that back in the old MySpace days through the MySpace DMs there. And it was certainly not how I would want the match to have ended, but quite honestly, without that injury, there's a very good chance that the Black and the Brave Wrestling Academy never exists. So in a way, that was kind of my butterfly effect moment that led me to the life I lead now.
It's always good to look at the big picture, right?
Of course, yeah. And we all have seminal moments in our lives that maybe don't feel like positive developments when they're happening, and you find out later on in life, when you look back in retrospect, that without that negative experience, it wouldn't have propelled you to all of the positive experiences that you would have later on.
We obviously your other half of the Black and Brave, Tyler Black, I'm assuming this was a positive experience. You had a no ropes barbed wire match against him.
Yes, we did.
Can you tell us about that match?
Yeah, that was a crazy match. That one was for a company called AAW in Chicago. We were kind of given the ball and told, hey, you're going to lead this company for the next year. It was a year-long feud, which is very rare in independent wrestling. We were very young, 20 years old at the time. And we were kind of considered the long-haired, pretty guys, doing the flippies and all that stuff. We weren't deathmatch wrestlers, right? And it was very rare that somebody or a couple of performers like us wrestling the style we wrestled would eventually end up in a no rope barbed wire match. That just wasn't something that happened back then, but we embraced it. We thought it was a cool idea, a fun opportunity, and it was the culmination of a year-long feud, which really kind of put the company AAW on the map. And all these years later, they remain one of the top promotions in independent wrestling, at least here in the Midwest, and I would venture to say all across the country. And it was really cool for us to lead them into the success that they have now. That match, that no rope barbed wire match, was the first time that AAW had sold out the Berwyn Eagles Club in the history of the company. And the company had been around for about 2-3 years at that point. But the first time there was ever a sellout audience for AAW, it was to watch myself and Tyler Black in a no rope barbed wire match for the heavyweight championship, which I will say here on this episode, I won that match. So
that being said, Seth Rollins, good friend or better enemy?
Oh, he's certainly, at least in real life, certainly a great friend. But in the ring, I think I preferred our matches against each other than our matches where we teamed together. Growing up, I was never a big fan of tag team wrestling, so it's kind of funny that I'm probably best known for my partnership with one Seth Rollins, at least in the independents. But I thought our matches against each other were significantly better than the matches we had as a tag team.
And I mean, you're still tag teaming with him. It is the Black and Brave training school.
Yes, absolutely. We're training the future generation of wrestling superstars right now in Davenport, Iowa, at the Black and Brave.
Now, I have to ask, what's a pet peeve about Seth that you just don't understand?
I don't know. I guess I wouldn't say pet peeve, but he can be short and abrupt in text messages, and I'm the opposite. I text paragraphs because I'm old, right? But he's adapted to the new style of texting, where it's just very straight, short, to the point type text, and so you can never read his mood that day. So maybe he sends you a text and you're like, oh, he's upset about something, and then you see him a couple hours later and he's in a great mood, and you're like, oh, I was reading into that far too much. But I wouldn't say it's a full-blown pet peeve. It's just something that we're a little different on.
Fair enough. Now, you were a part of the Ted Petty Invitational in 2005. Low-key one of the more better-known independent tournaments. A lot of big names compete in that tournament. What was that like, being in that tournament?
Oh, yeah, we're going way back. That was incredible. So as a fan of independent wrestling, I was a big fan of IWA Mid-South, the company. I thought they were, if not the best, one of the best independent promotions in America at that time. And I actually attended live both nights of the Ted Petty Invitational 2004, which in my opinion is the greatest American independent wrestling tournament of all time. I mean, if you just look at the list of performers that were in that tournament, you had CM Punk and Colt Cabana and Jimmy Jacobs and AJ Styles and Samoa Joe and the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, and the list goes on and on and on, quite literally. And so the fact that I was able to attend that live, it really just, it was a special weekend for me. It really kind of lit a fire under me in terms of what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be as an independent wrestler. And little did I know, just a year later, I would be invited to be a part of that same tournament. And I had a wonderful first round opponent in Chris Sabin, who's now a WWE superstar. And he took care of me that night and made sure we went out there and had a banger of a match. So that was a great experience. He did eliminate me in that first round, but I did also get to wrestle in a non-tournament match the following night against Trick Davis for the #1 contendership to the IWA Mid-South Light Heavyweight Championship, which I won and then never received my opportunity at the Light Heavyweight Championship. So, Ian Rotten, if you're listening to this podcast, you may or may not be, but if IWA Mid-South ever comes back and ever becomes an organization again, just know you owe me a match for the Light Heavyweight Championship, and you will need to give me a few months advance notice, because I will need to lose some weight in order to be part of the Light Heavyweight division once more.
All right. Potentially another return to the ring.
Maybe. I wouldn't hold your breath.
Well, not technically wrestling, but could you tell us about Night Fight?
Oh yeah, now this was a fun one. This just kind of came to be. I got a DM on Instagram asking if I had ever heard of armored combat fighting, which I had not. And so I did a couple. I watched a couple videos on YouTube. I was like, oh, this is weird, but certainly looks fun. And they asked me if I'd like to be a part of the show. And so I went through some interviews with some Hollywood casting agents, and apparently they liked what they saw and liked my personality. So I got asked to be a part of the show, which aired on the History Channel. Only one season. It wasn't as popular as maybe they had hoped. But one of the judges was Christian of Edge and Christian fame. So that was kind of cool. But I mean, what you saw was the real deal. There was nothing scripted about that. That was 100% real and legitimate. It was an actual competition. So real, in fact, that they made us sign documents that said we would not try to rig the competition in any way. And if we did, we were subject to jail time or a $10,000 fine or both, which wasn't anything I was interested in having to do. So made sure that was all on the up and up. But I mean, yeah, it was a bunch of guys dressed in medieval armor, head to toe. Those suits weighed about 80 pounds. We were given real weapons. I chose a battle axe. Other people had swords and shields and whatnot. And we were told, go out there and hit each other. The only rules were you couldn't stab and you couldn't hit someone, I want to say, on the back of the knee, if I remember correctly. Those were the two rules. And those were the only two rules. One thing that was not expressed to me before we started filming this television show was the fact that I would be the only rookie on my episode. And that was kind of the shtick of the show, is that of the, I want to say, 6 people that were involved on your episode, 5 of them would be actual Armored Combat Fighting League members who had, upwards of 20 years experience doing this, and there would be 1 rookie per episode. In my episode, I was obviously the rookie, having never done this before. And I wasn't told until the night before we shot, so about 12 hours in advance, I got the word that, hey, these guys who have been doing this for 20 years are going to try and take your head off. So I try to tell people I equate it to never playing a down of football in your life and then immediately being asked to play in the Super Bowl against NFL players. So that's essentially what happened to me when I was on Night Fight. And sure as hell, I got the crap beat out of me, but it was a very, very, very fun experience. I got to kind of test my mettle, see who I was as a competitor, as an individual, and I thought I performed pretty well, all things considered. And if I was ever asked to do it again, I would certainly do it in a heartbeat.
Now, first and foremost, do you know how they came to the conclusion of DMing you personally? Because
I have no idea. I know they were looking for people who had combat experience, and even though, and I hope I'm not ruining this for anyone, but wrestling is scripted. So even though wrestling is scripted, they viewed wrestling as combat experience, and so they asked me to take part, and I said, what the hell, let's do it. And I got flown out to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and set up with a hotel for a few nights, and it was like I said, it was certainly a wild experience, a crazy experience, but a fun experience. And that's kind of what life's all about, at least from my perspective, is get outside of your comfort zone, try new things, say yes to things that maybe your first inclination would be to say no to. Just life's for living. You get one crack at this, and I'm determined to make the most of it. So whether it's being a professional wrestler or writing for my favorite professional football team, the Miami Dolphins, which I also do, or it's putting on an 80-pound suit of armor and hitting somebody in the back of the head with a battle axe, which is the most unnerving thing I've ever done in my life. But any of those things, I'm down for new experiences, and I want to try new things, and I want to be able to have stories to tell when I'm an old man, or at least older than I am now.
So you said that you would do it again. Are we thinking about changing professions?
No, certainly not.
Full-time?
After the show was finished, I did get asked to join an Iowa chapter of the Armored Combat Fighting League, but I was unable to make the time commitment, so I did have to decline. But if it was another weekend filming for season 2 of Night Fight on the History Channel, that would certainly be something that I would make time for.
All right. Now, this next question, you can say pass if you don't feel comfortable speaking about it. But you could correct me if I'm wrong, but you are bipolar. Can you tell us about how that has hindered your pro wrestling journey, and if in any way has it helped your pro wrestling journey?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's actually the first time I've ever been asked about that on a podcast. But I was diagnosed in my early teenage years with bipolar disorder, something that runs in my family. I'm not going to sit here and say I suffer from bipolar disorder, because I've been able to find ways to live with the disorder in my everyday life. It's certainly a challenge, but I do not take medication for the disorder. I'm an unmedicated bipolar individual, but that's not me discouraging anyone who does seek medical treatment for that particular affliction. If that's something that you're dealing with, certainly talk to your doctor and find out what the best course of action for you is. But for me, it was just something that I felt like the medication, when I was on it in the past, it stifled my creativity. And in the line of work that I'm in, I don't want that creativity stifled. So I choose to go unmedicated, and I have different ways of dealing with the highs and the lows that come along with bipolar disorder. Because I think there's a misconception that when you're bipolar, you're just going to fly off the handle and have these crazy mood swings at every hour of the day. And that's not how it works for everyone. The more common form of bipolar, which is the one that I have, is that you have these periods of they call manic behavior, right? Which can really just present itself as you being overexcited, overstimulated in that way. And I find that I am the most creative in those moments. I come up with cool wrestling ideas, whether that's spots or moves or storylines now, running my own independent promotion. So those moments are beneficial to me. But one thing you have to remember when you're having a manic moment, when you're having that spike, is that it's followed by low points, right? Some would call it depression. And you just have to understand what the patterns are, and you have to be ready to combat those things however you see fit, whatever works for you. So I have certain ways that I deal with the low moments. But for me, it wasn't worth completely abandoning the low moments while also abandoning the high moments. I wanted my high moments. So it's certainly something I've lived with for quite a long time, and I've developed strategies to mitigate the negative effects of the bipolar disorder. But here I am, a successful adult human being with children and multiple businesses and professions, and I'm able to still live my life to the fullest. So if anybody out there is dealing with the same issues or the same things, just keep going. That's really all you need to do, is just keep going, figure out a plan, a course of action for you that's going to work best, and understand that it's not a disability, it's not an impairment, it's just how you're wired as an individual, and you can certainly still lead a very productive life while dealing with your bipolar disorder. And that's something I've been able to do, and so I do believe that everybody else can find ways to do the same.
Hell yeah. I think it's time for the colossal question. Let's say they're making a movie about you. Every movie has a soundtrack. What would be the first 3 songs in your movie soundtrack?
Oh my gosh, putting me on the spot here. Okay, so my favorite band of all time is AFI, A Fire Inside. They used to be the cool, young, hip, post-hardcore / emo band on the scene in 2003, 2004, 2005. They're now old men, just like myself, but they're still my favorite band. My favorite song by them is Paper Airplanes, Makeshift Wings. So that would certainly be on there. And then we got to get some, and that's more of an upbeat type song, but we got to get some sad boy songs in there as well. And so just because I want my playlist here to be long so that my biopic, my documentary can be longer, I'm going to choose the song Disintegration by The Cure.
Okay.
Off of the album Disintegration. I believe it's like 8.5 minutes long. It's my favorite song by them. It's a fantastic track, so I'm going to throw that in there as well. And then I think we're going to go with a pop track by Carly Rae Jepsen. We're going to Call Me Maybe, just because it's fun, and we want people to have fun. So that was an entrance song of mine many years ago. So we'll go with that. And if that one's not available, I'll give you a fourth one. We're going to go The Bitch Is Back by Elton John, also another entrance song of mine when I came back from my neck injury, and just a great track by a great artist.
All right, a solid 3 picks. An eclectic 4 picks as well.
I like all types of music. We get to throw in a rap song in there, maybe a 90s country song. I like all kinds of music.
So basically, you were ready to make the whole soundtrack right here now.
Yeah, we could go further. 12 songs, 15 songs, 20 songs, whatever you want.
Well, now that we have the soundtrack down, everybody knows you get the soundtrack first, then you write the script. And every movie has a supporting cast. Who would be 3 people significant to you in your story that would be in your movie?
Well, obviously we're going to have to go Seth Rollins. He's going to have to be in there. You can't write the story of me without mentioning him. So we'll put him in there. He's going to be in this film. And then the 2 most important people in my life, and those are my children. So my kids are going to be cast in this movie, and they can even play themselves. How about that?
Perfect. Who plays Seth?
Let's see. Who plays Seth? I'm not sure there's anyone out there who necessarily looks like Seth as a movie star, but I'll go with what's Jason Momoa, the Aquaman guy. He can play Seth. How's that sound?
Okay. Now on to a controversial subject. Pineapple on pizza. What's your stance?
I like pizza, and I like pizza in all forms. I do not discriminate. So pineapple on pizza is all right with me. It's not my first choice. If I'm ordering a pizza, I'm not going to say pineapple sounds good. But there's actually a local spot here in the Quad Cities. It's called Low Pies, and they are actually owned by the cousins of Seth Rollins, and they make a very delicious pizza, which is pepperoni, pineapple, and jalapenos. And I would have never ordered this ever, but it was given to me for free, and I can't turn down free food.
Of course.
So I tried a slice, and for some reason, that combination of ingredients was phenomenal. So if you ever get an opportunity, pepperoni, pineapple, jalapenos on a pizza, you won't be disappointed, I promise.
All right. Now, we love the late, great Tracy Smothers on the show. Do you know...
Oh, we certainly do.
Do you know the acronym for Doug? THUG.
Oh, gosh. I used to know the acronym for Thug. Oh, man, it's you put me on the spot. I don't think I can remember it offhand, but Tracy Smothers was a phenomenal individual, a guy I got to spend a good amount of time with being on IWA Mid-South shows back in the day. I don't think you'd find anybody in this business that had a negative word to say about Tracy. So you stumped me on the acronym for Thug. And if I had a little bit more time to think about it, I could probably give it to you, but I don't think our listeners want me sitting here in silence for 5 minutes trying to figure it out. But
Well, I'll spell it out for you.
Go ahead.
T is for terrible, H is for hell, U is for ugly, and G is for jail, 'cause a Doug can't spell.
Classic Smothers, man.
Yes.
What a tweener, baby.
Oh, definitely. We love the late great Tracy Smothers, trying to keep the memory alive on the show. We're the question you'll be asked on a wrestling interview. Would you ever consider wrestling a rock? Not Dwayne Johnson, not the country, an actual physical rock.
Oh yeah, of course. Why not, right? I've wrestled crazy things in my career. I did wrestle a mannequin torso at one point. So that can't be too much different than just a rock, not the rock, but a rock. I wrestled a 6 foot tall penguin once. What else? Well, I mean, I've wrestled some wrestlers who probably had the talent of a rock, but so maybe I already have wrestled a rock. I'm not sure.
Well, just for context, there is a wrestler named Psycho Mike that indeed wrestled a rock for over 15 minutes in a Tungsten Man match. That's an Iron Man match that lasts for 2 weeks.
Oh wow, that's a little too long in my opinion, but hey, whatever floats your boat. If there's an audience out there that's willing to watch you do what you do, more power to you, brother.
On a more serious note, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
5 years, I will be 43 years old. I'm 38 now, and I believe that's how math works. But 5 years, I hope to still be doing what I do right now in terms of running the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy with my buddy Seth Rollins, still training the future generation of pro wrestlers. I hope to be the best dad I can possibly be. 5 years from now, my oldest son will be graduating high school or will have already graduated high school. So hopefully I can help him become the wonderful young adult that I know he will be. And I want to be healthy. I want to be happy. And I want to be at peace. That's really all I want from life. I can't sit here and set goals, financially motivated goals or anything like that. I just want to be healthy. I want to be happy, and I want to be at peace.
Hell yeah. And now, since we are nearing the conclusion of this interview, we are wrestling with the 8 questions of doom. This is our speed round or bonus round, the round where we see who you really are. Are you ready?
I am ready, sir.
Excluding yourself, greatest wrestler of all time.
Shawn Michaels.
Worst wrestler.
I think every wrestler brings their own unique skill set to the table, so I think I'll no comment that one.
So you're taking the default answer.
Yes, sir.
You have chosen Eva Marie.
Sure, I'll take that one.
Your
Although I've met Eva Marie and she is a very nice human being, so I'd be reluctant to criticize her wrestling skills.
Fair enough. You're main eventing WrestleMania for the World Championship. Who is your opponent?
Ric Flair. Woo! I've had the pleasure of spending time with Ric Flair, and Ric Flair is Ric Flair 100% of the time. That's not a character. But if anybody can get me through a WrestleMania main event, and I already used Shawn Michaels for one of my answers, so I'm going to go with the second greatest professional wrestler of all time, who really may be the greatest, but Shawn's my favorite, and I'll pick Ric Flair.
Woo! If you could come out to anyone's entrance music, past or present, who would it be?
I think I would come out to The Undertaker's entrance music. because there's just something about that song that brings out the child in everyone. You remember the first time you saw him, the first time you heard him, and the first time you crapped your pants because of it.
The original Undertaker theme.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Finish the sentence. Kayfabe is
something that is forgotten, or at least less importance is placed upon kayfabe, and something that I wish could be brought back, but never will be.
We would have also accepted taste great on toast. Squash, vegetable.
I believe that's Vegemite.
That too. Squash, vegetable or fruit?
Yeah, I was just having this conversation with my son earlier today, not necessarily about squash, but about things that are technically fruit, but seem like vegetables, like tomatoes, avocados, and the like.
Yes.
Squash, I don't care what anyone says. Squash is a vegetable. My grandma runs a squash farm in New Hampshire, believe it or not.
Wow.
And it does not taste like fruit. It tastes like a vegetable. Therefore, in my opinion, squash is a vegetable.
Well, it is indeed a fruit. But
it's not.
Well, you're part of Squash Squad now, and that means a hell of a lot more. New Japan wrestler Taichi, his ring gear gets smaller every year, revealing more of himself to the world. My question, what is the appropriate trunks to butt cheek ratio for ring gear?
Well, I think you're asking the wrong guy. I think myself and Seth Rollins, we were part of the innovators in the Tiny Ring Gear Club. And so younger me would have said the tinier the better, but older me wants a bit of decency from some of these young wrestlers, and you need to cover up a little bit more. We got little kids in the audience, man.
All right. And the last question, the main event, the thing everybody wants to know. Have you ever had a conversation with a stranger in a supermarket about Darby Allin?
I've had quite a few conversations with strangers in supermarkets about wrestling. I get yelled at. I do my grocery shopping at Walmart, which might make me some sort of capitalist pig in some people's eyes. But it's close to my house. It's the cheapest option. I go to Walmart, and so a lot of wrestling fans find themselves at Walmart as well. And at least here locally, I get recognized for my involvement in wrestling, so they want to talk to me about wrestling. But I can honestly say the topic of Darby Allin has never come up in any of those conversations.
And there's the correct answer.
Good.
And that will conclude this interview. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this with me.
Hey, thank you for having me. This was a really fun one. I certainly got a lot of questions asked to me that have never been asked of me before in a pro wrestling podcast interview. So I appreciate you not only entertaining me, but entertaining your audience as well.
I appreciate that. I like to make it interesting for our guests.
And you certainly do. Thank you very much for having me.
Can you tell us where we can find you, Black and Brave, SCW, on social media?
Absolutely. All right. So we'll start with SCW. If you're in the Midwest and you'd like to check us out, you can find us at SCW Pro on Twitter, Instagram, SCW Official on TikTok. I think we're on Blue Sky. I don't know. We're on everything right now. So SCW Pro, you'll have a good chance of finding us. Black and Brave, we're on Twitter at Black and Brave, on Instagram at Black and Brave Wrestling. And if you are interested in myself, you can follow me on Instagram at mbrave13. I'll be quite honest, I'm very rarely on Instagram, although this is how we got set up with this interview, and also how I got set up with Night Fight. So whatever, maybe you find me on there occasionally. But Instagram, mbrave13, Twitter, mbrave13. I do not have a Facebook. I've never had a Facebook. I've always been violently against Facebook, so you won't find me on there. Or you can come out to an SCW show and talk to me in person. How's that sound?
Hell yeah. And you don't even have to type it into your Google machine. All of the links to all his social media will be in the description of the video below, both on YouTube and Castbox. Simply click the link. A new tab will appear on whatever device you are on. You have no excuse. Get trained by this guy. and go to and buy a damn ticket to SCW.
Yes, I agree.
Of course, thank you for listening. If you like what we're doing, please like, subscribe, comment, both on YouTube and CastBox as we enter year 6 of Wrestling with Entertainment. Join us every Tuesday and Wednesday for new incredible interviews, and follow this show at Wrestling with E, both on X, Thread, and Instagram for information on who we're interviewing, when we're interviewing them, links to those interviews, and so much more. Follow me personally at JamesJ993. Right, when I say Wrestling With, you say entertainment, okay?
Yes, sir.
For our very special guest, Marek Brave, Kaliko Yacht, Scooter Dust, I'm James J, and this has been Wrestling With
Entertainment.
Hey, folks, this is the Colossal Mike Law, and you are listening to Wrestling with Entertainment. Enjoy the show. Support these guys. We appreciate it very much. We'll see you at ringside.